So recently, I've been watching The Boys, and I love it so far. Really great stuff. I highly recommend watching, especially prior to making a review of the show.
I know, I don't think I will be watching season 4 of The Boys after all. Quite frankly, I've got better things to do, and I suspect you do as well.
Oh. Now, before I've even dignified any argument with the response, I've already made it clear why this is the worst review I've seen for the show. He didn't watch the season. He's talking about how bad this show has become, yet has admitted to not having watched the damn thing. So, how could he possibly argue against the show? How could he actually convince people who have seen the show that this is of poor quality? Well, let's see him try.
You know, I used to be a real fan of that show, to the point where I actually gave the first season a Drinker Recommends award. And truly, what higher accolade can one bestow upon a work of art these days? Anyway, at a time when the superhero genre was already becoming kind of stale and played out, The Boys came along to completely tear up the rulebook. Funny, violent, irreverent, and wickedly subversive, with a complex and well-written cast of heroes and villains, plus a whole lot of other characters in between, and a story that brutally skewered everything from fake corporate activism to our obsession with celebrity culture, media manipulation, and cultural warfare. It was really everything you could look for in a show like this. I kinda checked out after season 3, partly because I was pretty burned out with superhero stories in general, even shows that subverted the genre, and partly because I could see the way The Boys was heading as a creative property. The complex, nuanced and multifaceted characters were slowly morphing into simplified parodies of themselves.
Provide one example.
The central storyline was becoming trite and predictable, and the bitingly witty satire was becoming more overt and partisan with every season, parroting the same predictable talking points as every other Hollywood product.
What talking points are they sharing and why are they bad? Do we get an answer or is this goodbye?
Goodbye.
Basically, The Boys just wasn't cool or interesting anymore. It wasn't fighting the power, it was the power. It wasn't raging against the machine, it was part of it. What was once rebellious, subversive, and irreverent had become just another mouthpiece for the safe, corporatized, hollow, and performative activism that it once so brutally mocked.
Just give me one example and I'll stop bugging you.
So I wasn't exactly brimming with excitement at the prospect of sacrificing another 8 hours of my increasingly limited lifespan for the new season. Frankly, I've got better things to do with my time.
Like, reviewing a season you didn't watch?
But hey, maybe they managed to turn things around. I mean, Stranger Things was drinking at the Last Chance Saloon for me after a disastrously bad season 3, only for the showrunners to listen to fan complaints and come back with an absolute banger of season 4. Maybe we'd actually get something similar here.
Okay, maybe this time he'll actually start providing examples. He'll give some references and engage with the show in good faith.
So it was off to Rotten Tomatoes for me to check out the reviews. Not the critic reviews, of course, because nobody in their right mind gives a shit what those fucking shills have got to say about anything anymore. I'm talking about the audience reviews, which is the only semi-reliable barometer for quality these days, and oh.
So he doesn't actually use anything from the show to make his case. He ended up using Rotten Tomatoes. Okay, by your logic, The Rise of Skywalker is a good movie. Prove me wrong.
I mean, the audience scores had been gradually declining from an all-time high of 90% in season 1 to 75% by season 3, but that's kind of in line with most shows, to be fair. But there's no denying that season 4 absolutely fell off a cliff.
You haven't made an argument. This is just an appeal to popularity. You know what else was popular back in the day? Slavery. So was slavery a good thing in America? What kind of nonsense is this? Your character assassinating the critical in your name. This is not critical thinking, this isn't an argument, this is just tomato throwing.
Good lord, I don't think I've seen a fan base turn so hard on any show since Game of Thrones. Look through the reviews and you'll see page after page of absolutely brutal write-ups, all saying basically the same thing. The general consensus is that the show seems to have sacrificed writing quality and smart characterization in favour of simplistic shock value and cheap political point scoring. In short, the writers have become more interested in getting their own personal ideology across and owning the chuds, rather than actually telling a good story.
Okay, you didn't watch the show. and you didn't need to admit it in your video for me to know. I'll take this opportunity to talk about some of the best parts of The Boys Season 4 off the cuff. Spoilers, by the way. Season 3 already started to show Homelander as a more vulnerable person, and was the first time we truly saw Homelander scared. Season 4 expands upon this by exploring Homelander's denial of the fact that he's more human than he likes to admit. He tries to convince himself that he's only interested in raising his son to be like gods ruling over everyone, and to treat humans as toys you can play around with however you'd like. But what Homelander has been running from is the fact that he's truly a needy individual, desperate to be loved and appreciated. He may tell Starlight he doesn't care that much if he isn't loved, but we know this isn't the case. Homelander is eventually told by one of the scientists behind his creation that Homelander was programmed with the desire to be loved, so he'd be obedient to everyone in the lab. He could have broken out at any time, but endured it all so he can be accepted. This episode really dives into how broken of a man Homelander is, and what drives many of the mistakes he makes, or his overall erratic behavior. Or how about how Huey reunites with his mom for the first time? Huey remains in character with his short, impulsive responses when he's struggling emotionally. He's immediately angered by his mom's presence because he spent years believing she left him without saying goodbye, for no reason whatsoever. His anger kept her scared to tell him anything, as if he wouldn't have ever accepted anything she says. Huey gets told to work things out with his mom, but doesn't want to confront his past. It's easier for him to stay angry and fight his way to get what he wants for his dad, instead of confronting the question that has haunted him forever. Why did his mom leave? But as hard as it would be for him to try humanizing his mom and giving her a chance to explain herself, he grows past his anger and listens. He learns that the situation was more complicated than he thought, with his dad fully aware of this too. He couldn't believe his mom was deeply depressed and suicidal at first because of how much she appeared to be happy and excited around Huey. What Huey took away from this is that his mom behaved this way because she did care, in spite of how much pain she was hiding from him. It gives him closure on the pain that has affected him for years, something he took a while to even talk with Annie about. And that's not the only person Huey is able to forgive in his life. A-Train seems to be going through an arc of redemption of his own. Throughout seasons 3 and 4, we learn more about where A-Train comes from and what he believes in, and that there is a part of him that truly wants to be good. But he's stuck in a world that forces him to act otherwise. He thinks that doing what's right is what gets you killed and is desperate to survive, but he starts feeling guilty for the fact he's not truly a hero. He's only pretending to be as he gets away with hurting many people. His brother revealing the truth to his nephews gave him a major moment of introspection. A-Train isn't just cold-hearted and pure evil like Homelander is. While he is still wrong for what he did in the past, he still has a desire to be good buried underneath the fear of the consequences. He even starts helping Huey and the others fight back against Vought. He also tries to help Huey save his dad based on the deal, even under the belief that Huey won't honor his end of the deal anyway. When Huey notices this, he spots a true change in heart for A-Train. He grows tired of the hate and decides to forgive him for what he did, which encourages him to be better. But that's not all. Let's talk about how Butcher is handled, especially this scene with Ryan. He tries to put up an image for Ryan. While he hides it, Ryan can tell. Ryan decides to open up to Butcher about what's worrying him about Homelander. The fact that Homelander pushed Ryan to kill someone and not have a single care for it. Through Ryan's openness, Butcher finally decides to put down the facade and reveals how truly afraid he is of dying. Not just for the fact he won't be around, but for the fact that he will die without having a chance to make things right after all the wrongs he's done. It progresses the relationship between these two characters in a way that's meaningful. Both sides learn more about each other in a way that significantly changes their perspectives on one another. I'm not breaking down every bit of this season there is to appreciate, because there's a lot. I'm just pointing out how indisputably false it is to state that the season isn't telling a story in favor of some political agenda or whatever this silly claim is. I recommend watching these episodes for yourself to fully appreciate what the character writing has to offer, instead of going by Rotten Tomatoes reviews, or any other frivolous reasons Drinker gives.
Naturally, I was curious to get the other side of the story.
If you were, you'd actually watch the season, but go on.
So I took a look at a recent interview with showrunner Eric Kripke in The Hollywood Reporter, and he had this to say about accusations that the show had become too partisan. I clearly have a perspective, and I'm not shy about putting that perspective in the show. Anyone who wants to call the show woke or whatever, that's okay. Go watch something else. But I'm certainly not going to pull any punches or apologise for what we're doing. Some people who watch it think Homelander is the hero. What do you say to that? The show's many things, subtle isn't one of them, so if that's the message you're getting from it, I just throw up my hands. You know, why do I feel like this is rapidly becoming a tale as old as time? A show gets popular and goes mainstream, the writers get a little too overconfident and think they can use it as a platform for their own personal hang-ups, the fans start to push back against them, and instead of taking that criticism on board and responding in a constructive manner...
Your criticism isn't constructive, it's dishonest. Normally I hate tossing that word around based on someone's read of a story, but the problem is, you based your review off Rotten Tomatoes reviews, not the story itself, because you didn't watch the goddamn season.
They just say, fuck it, go watch something else, you dicks. Kinda reminds me of this idiot who did her level best to tank the American comic book industry and then had the balls to berate her own customers for not loving what she was doing.
And if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book.
Well, that's me told. You girls enjoy yourself.
It's the entertainment equivalent of that asshole kid who takes his ball and flounces off home because everyone else won't play the game the way he wants them to.
No, this is actually like telling a kid who does nothing but whine at basketball practice to go home when he made no attempt to actually play the game or learn anything.
It's this weird narcissistic sense of entitlement amongst creatives these days that everyone should just unconditionally support and agree with you because you're such a paragon of wisdom that there's no possibility you could ever be wrong about anything.
You unconditionally supported and agreed with Rotten Tomatoes reviews instead of watching the show as a means of crapping on the latest season. You can't be serious when you say this. I want to ask any of the 89,000 people who liked this video, why is it good? What did he say that was insightful or meaningful about the show? Can you give me an answer, or did you just unconditionally like this video because you're subscribed to him?
The problem, Eric, is that other people don't always think exactly the same way we do.
That's true. Most people don't read off Rotten Tomatoes reviews and use that as proof that a season of a show is not worthwhile.
They don't always share our beliefs, parrot our opinions, mirror our viewpoints on every topic. And that's okay, because people are allowed to have different points of view.
I agree with what you said here. So here's a suggestion, Pimpin'. Come on one of my Disagreement Day streams and we'll hash it out. I host it every week or so with Colin and League Entertainment. We'd love to hear you talk about your problems with the show. After you've watched it, of course.
A smart, humble, and creative writer finds ways to bridge the gap between all these different groups through the unifying concept of good storytelling.
The main characters we root for have ideological disagreements all the time. If you've watched the show, you'd know that.
A bad writer, on the other hand, tries to hammer home his opinions on his audience with sheer brute force, and then gets angry and resentful when they push back against it. I'll let you decide which one you used to be and which one you are now.
Even if I were to agree with you that the creator defends the show poorly, what does this have to do with the actual writing of the show? Can you explain that to me, or... Alright, you didn't watch the season.
Also, it's interesting watching the discourse around the boys on social media, which I can best summarise as, the boys used to be smart and fun, now it's all about pushing politics and nothing else.
Anyone who says this didn't pay attention to the show, or is disingenuous.
Cry harder, chuds. Don't you know this show was always making fun of people like you?
It makes fun of everybody. Get over it.
Okay, let's get this over with. Yes, most people with functioning brain cells knew exactly what this show was and where its political sympathies lay. Nobody in their right mind looked at Homelander as a misunderstood hero that represented the voice of the masses.
You say that, but I think I have one extreme example we can all laugh at.
Chuck, he forced a woman to commit suicide. How's he a good person? I'm not sure if you heard me.
No. Hold on. That woman, she was going to commit suicide anyway. She wasted his time.
No, she was not going to commit suicide.
She originally was going to commit suicide. In fact, it was only upon seeing Homelander act the way he acted that she wanted to bitch out of it and act like a coward. So in fact, Homelander was keeping her consistent.
A coward?
That's correct. If you make a decision, right, to do something and then you back out of it, you're a coward.
All right, it sounds like if you truly believe that, you're just as evil as Homelander. I believe that if he
listen to me. We can end this right now. We can end this right now. We can end this right now. I am just as quote unquote evil as Homelander. 100%. I identify with Homelander more than any other superhero.
Explains a lot.
It very much does. So what you should definitely hope that does not happen to Lucas is if I fall into superpowers. Because if I fall into superpowers, what Homelander does is going to be very much accurate to what I do. 100%.
Nobody looked at Stormfront and thought, you know what, she's got a point there. Nobody clapped and cheered when the Deep forced himself on Starlight, and it's complete gaslighting to suggest otherwise. The show was never particularly subtle about its politics or what it expected its audience to take from it. The difference though is that for the first couple of seasons at least, it was actually fun and entertaining because the creative focus was still on the story and characters. And believe it or not, people can be surprisingly receptive to your political ideas when they're smartly presented and wrapped up inside an entertaining product. People can empathize with characters that embody ideas they don't normally support, as long as those characters are well written and likable. People are even capable of laughing at themselves when you point out the more absurd or extreme elements of their worldview, provided you do it in a way that's actually funny and insightful. In each of these cases though, the primary focus should always be on entertaining your audience instead of lecturing or pandering to them, and I think this is where The Boys has finally come unstuck. The more strident and blatant your messaging becomes, the less entertained people are going to be, and the more of your audience you end up pushing away. Instead of uniting them with entertainment, you end up dividing and alienating them with politics. And well, I hope it was all worth it, Eric. I hope it was worth tanking your franchise, tarnishing your legacy, and turning your own customers against you, all for the sake of some cheap political theatre that's going to be forgotten as soon as your show's over. I hope all those pats on the back that you and your fellow writers have given yourselves make you feel better when the show inevitably gets cancelled.
That's a neat argument. Now have you watched the season?
Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Goodbye.
I'm sure many of you are surprised to hear this, but Melonie Mac went on a completely delusional rant about something. Case in point being Sonic X Shadow Generations. The remaster was great, and Shadow's game knocked it out of the park, so I'm curious to see what kind of criticism there is to levy.
Oh look, another game being censored for the modern audience that doesn't exist. Imagine my shock.
Melonie Mac going on another delusional rant over the smallest of things. Imagine my shock.
This time, Sonic X Shadow Generations is being censored across the board for multiple reasons and very weird ones. They're changing our games. They're ruining our games.
This is batshit insane already, and we've barely started. Even if you don't like the changes made to Sonic Generations, that doesn't ruin the game. It physically can't, because the changes don't affect the core gameplay. All that changed in the base gameplay were some of the controls and the fact modern Sonic can spin dash if you hold the jump button. And we got Shadow Generations in the process, which is an even better game. Changes to dialogue, audio takes, or character bios don't ruin the game, especially since the story doesn't fundamentally change.
Yet again, let's go ahead and dive into this video. Now, I have pulled up right here a tweet from Grums. He said, they censored Sonic X Shadow Generations. You've got Rouge covered up even more than last time, which as you can see in this screenshot, apparently, like they moved her wings so you cannot see her back. Apparently, backs are bad.
You're about to hear a crazy concept, but small design details like that are often arbitrary and don't need to reflect some deeper message about how backs are bad. I genuinely have no clue how you landed at that conclusion, and I don't know how this ruins the game. You're claiming the game got ruined, and one of your reasons is that they covered a cartoon bat's back some more. Point number one already sucks, so let's see if the others hold up.
No more hand and face to a female. Can't have that. Now, here's why, though. Now he's giving her cupcakes.
No, actually, it's Amy giving Sonic the cupcakes. Now, I'll be fair here. I prefer this part in the original over the remaster. But that's kinda where the conversation stops. There's no deeper censorship for modern audiences or whatever nonsense you just spewed.
How does this make sense? Well, this thing is Amy is obsessed with Sonic the Hedgehog, as a lot of us know. And so he's kind of like, hey. But no, now she's just like, oh yay, cupcakes.
How does that not make sense? If she's obsessed with Sonic, then she probably wants to be the one to hand him the cupcakes, as that draws more attention to her. They probably made that change because running over at Sonic is probably going to be less effective than literally treating him to something delicious. Especially since she just tried that in an earlier shot, and Sonic just pushed her off. Either of these scenarios make sense, but you can make arguments for the one they went with.
Now, was it fat shaming removed? Health and fitness have been fixed by lowering standards. Here you have Knuckles, who originally says, "Thanks, Sonic. You did good. You did a good job back there. Hey, did you gain weight?" And then now he just says, "Thanks, Sonic. Now then, tell me, where's the rest of my island?"
So, I don't like this dialogue change either. In fact, there's quite a bit of dialogue changes that I'm not a fan of. However, acting like this was removed for some anti-fat shaming agenda or whatever is just ridiculous speculation. Like I said regarding the dialogue earlier, while I disagree with some of the changes, it could simply be a product of preferring different exchanges or jokes. They didn't even bother to edit the animation for classic Sonic, so he ends up looking at his stomach thinking he might need to cut down on his weight. What makes you think they're worried about potential fat shaming if they didn't edit that animation when they could have? Also, ask yourself this real quick. Why do they even refer to him as Dr. Eggman in the first place? Oh, because it's a name Sonic called him to make fun of him, which Eggman embraced out of spite. And you know, the egg part refers to the shape of his body.
It's Sonic who named me Eggman, except the joke's on him. I embraced the name. I made it my own. His mockery is now a name feared across the ages.
Sega has already confirmed that the original version of Sonic Generations will still be available in bundles on Steam and Xbox, okay?
So if they're still available, then they're not out to go on a massive censorship spree. They literally could have updated this if they wanted to, but they didn't.
So anyway, I can tell you from where this all comes. Western activists, localization departments, every time, I swear, they have been the freaking worst. They're trying to infiltrate anime as well. In some of them, they kind of are. Or a lot of these JRPGs and stuff like that.
Infiltrating. Melonie, drop the fear-mongering, because all it does is make you look like a paranoid nutcase, rather than a sound-minded individual.
Community notes coming in to say, but Sega still sell the old version, is hilarious brain rot. This is why you should join community notes and not leave it to the lefties. Link in reply.
Yeah, because it's apparently just a leftist argument to point out the fact that old versions are still for sale and won't be changed, despite the fact they could if they actually wanted to. It's a leftist argument to point out the stupidity of a statement.
I don't know, this is insane. Now, I also saw this tweet regarding Amy. And so they also changed her bio here, because here you have Amy Rose, a young, cheerful girl hedgehog. Amy can be a bit obsessed about chasing Sonic. She even claims to be his girlfriend. She's an energetic go-getter who lets nothing get in her way. Now here's what they changed it to. A cheerful girl who loves to help others. Sonic inspired her to be her very best. You know, she's not obsessed with Sonic anymore, not in love with Sonic.
No, actually, she's still obsessed with Sonic at his birthday party. They straight up showed this in the cutscene. Did you watch it?
You weren't half bad, Sonic.
Half bad? Are you kidding? He was all great.
She's an energetic go-getter. With the help of her Pico hammer and fortune cards, nothing gets in her way. So this tweet I thought was really well said. It will forever break my heart that Western writers believe women loving a man is seen as a bad trait. And that's exactly where we're at with this. Can't have that.
Melonie, do you like to read? I like to read. You got an S rank. That's my Sonic. You really know how to win a girl over. Look at that. Amy straight up says that Sonic won her over after getting an S rank. She straight up says that in the speech bubble. Did you read it?
But yeah, anyway, so if this kind of stuff just changes so much of the narrative of the story that especially you already have outlined in this kind of situation, like she's obsessed with him, he's like, oh, you know, it's funny. It's just a part of, it's just like he's still having his conversation, and it's just like whatever, you know.
This doesn't change anything about the story. You'd know this if you played the game or at least watched the cutscenes. You'd clearly see that the story is not about the relationship between Sonic and Amy. The main characters are the two Sonics and the two Tailses, and they're trying to fix all of time using Sonic's speed. Small cutscene changes with Amy don't change that.
You know what else is weird? This looks better. Why does this look better? Well, isn't this supposed to be an updated version? Why does it look worse?
Please explain. You won't? Okay.
Goodbye.
I don't know what's going on, guys. Gaming has just gone downhill so bad.
The game is still the same at its core, and they literally released Shadow Generations alongside it, which is an improvement in every regard.
In more ways than one. A lot of these remasters, too, I mean, there's something has to be up with this. I would think that this would be the old one, this would be the new one by the graphics. Am I missing something here?
Yeah, it's called a brain.
So anyway, I have Kaide here who says this is how it starts. Something small, then it keeps going down that slippery slope, which we've already seen with Tomb Raider. I mean, look at this.
Again, you're fear-mongering based on really stupid reasons.
So here we are already at censoring humor in old games for kids. Do the defenders of these actions ever mention where the line for censorship is, or will we gradually erase everything that makes the weakest people in society feel uneasy? Exactly.
You're basing this off minor changes in dialogue or the cutscenes that ultimately do not change the core experience. You're flipping out and fear-mongering over minor changes and crying about censorship.
Never buy a game infected with the woke mind virus. Yes, exactly.
You cannot make this up. Apparently the game is infected with the woke mind virus because of these absolutely idiotic reasons. This is exactly what I'm talking about. They're doing this over-dramatic fear-mongering over slight changes that don't actually affect the core experience of the game, acting as if it was somehow ruined. I can't take this seriously.
The gaming industry has been infected by woke ideology, which is satanic ideology.
You've been infected with the brain rot ideology, and it shows. This is the exact thing that Colin was talking about in his video discussing this kind of brain rot, which is a great video and I recommend you watch, which I'll link in the description.
I made an entire video about that a while ago. If you look up woke ideology is satanic on my channel, you will find it.
Sure thing. I'll find that one and make fun of it too.
But that is the root of it. They want to pretend like, hey, this is all a virtue signal and this is all for virtue purposes, but it's not. They've had to create their own morality because they're godless people. So instead of actually having good moral values, or I don't know, encouraging kids to be healthy and so on and so forth, now it's, hey, let's not talk about being fat, being unhealthy, you know, that sort of thing.
Are you actually trying to moral grandstand because they cut down on one fat joke, despite keeping their biggest fat joke in the franchise being the name Dr. Eggman?
Your intellect is as weak as your dollar. Failure is your destiny. You disrespect yourself and your nation. You are made of stupid.
What you're doing right now is virtue signaling over fat jokes in Sonic games. How you've convinced yourself of this position while having the gall to virtue signal like this is comical. Stuff like this is something I would say in a troll video. In fact, this is some great material to work with for this upcoming April. So, thank you for that, Melonie.
And usually, in most cases, it's let's make female characters look more like men and male characters look more feminine so that they can try to blur the lines between male and female to push this transgender ideology and so on and so forth, as I have so many videos talking about all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I bet you look like a complete doofus in them.
Now this game also having all of this localization, censorship, that is completely unnecessary and makes no sense. Also, it just doesn't even look better, so why? I don't know.
What kind of person actually cares about any of this? Normal people don't react like this. What I care about is playing as time-traveling hedgehogs and striving for those S ranks every single time. Not this dumb bullshit they keep whining over.
Am I missing something, guys? I mean, not that I was ever gonna buy this game anyway, but what am I missing?
Wait, so you weren't going to buy the game anyway? Then why the fuck would we care about what you have to say about this? You suggested that this game was one of many which were being ruined by the woke mind virus, yet you haven't even played the damn thing to see if it was actually ruined. Did you even experience the story through the cutscenes? Thank you for admitting to us that you walked into this unprepared, like a complete idiot, and didn't do basic research on the game or even Sonic as a franchise.
Anyway, thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you want me
Actual garbage video, holy shit. Melonie, if you want to have a conversation about this, feel free to come on to Disagreement Day. These streams are done every week or so on the channel, though you're welcome to specifically schedule a time that works best for you. That's all I gotta say for now. I'll see you later.
If you want me to read the Bible to you, you can check out my Bible channel at Bible Time with Melonie Mac.
I totally would, if there wasn't someone out there with far more passion for the Bible, as well as a far superior speaking voice.